Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you all for being here today, coming out on a January Sunday morning. I was really excited when I heard the theme was Be Here Now, and the first thing that happened when I heard it is I had a flashback of a time when I was a child. So I was raised in North Dakota, and if you've ever driven in North Dakota, you know that the roads just go on forever and ever and ever. And we used to travel to visit family and friends all throughout North Dakota. And I remember being a kid in the back seat, kind of sandwiched between my brothers, and my parents up front. And I suspect that maybe we were fighting or picking on each other or something. And my dad said, "Hey kids, look up ahead on the road." And so we peer out the windshield and we see a puddle of water up ahead. And we're immediately asking questions, right? What are we going to do when we get there? Are we going to have to go around it? Will we be able to go through it? How are we going to know how deep it is? I mean, we were just fixated now on this puddle of water up ahead on the road. And I'm sure it kept us quiet, or at least, occupied for some period of time. But the more we stared at that puddle of water, the longer we drove, the more it just seemed to move further and further away. We never actually arrived, right? And of course, we know now it was all just a mirage. And yet we spent all that time fixated on worries about the future, of what we're going to do when we get there, what's going to happen. And of course, that creates a certain kind of anxiety in this present moment. Now, maybe somebody else looks at that puddle of water, and to them it looks like the fountain of youth, or some kind of well of wisdom or opportunity, or some, major moment of when we're really going to arrive, and we're looking at that future moment with anticipation and excitement and enthusiasm. And even that kind of energy creates a certain anxiety in the present moment. If we're not looking into the future, then we're often looking into the past. Maybe the past, that was our heyday, right? That's when, the good old days. That's when we were achieving all of the things, and we were winning all the football games, and we had all the friends. And maybe the past is this place and time in which it all just seemed to be working out so well. And when we think about the past with that kind of nostalgia, that creates anxiety in the current moment, as does looking back at the past with our regrets and our failures and our sense of burden and our losses. If we all were sitting here right now carrying our past with us, I wonder how heavy our backpacks would be, right? How many of our beliefs and ideas and burdens and regrets and shames and guilts do we carry into this moment and allow them to affect us in this moment? So whether we're looking into the past or we're looking into the future, it can create anxiety for us now. So then we hear spiritual teachers, Eckhart Tolle saying the power of now. We see the book, Ram Dass, Be Here Now. All the great spiritual teachers tell us about the importance and the power of the now. You take a yoga class and they will try to talk you into being in the now, right? Any spiritual teacher talks about the now. So then what do? You try to push away the past, and you try to not think about the future. And I don't know about you, but that creates a whole different kind of anxiety for me. Because the past has gifts to offer, right? It has its lessons and its nuggets of wisdom that we can now use in our current life. I don't think we're meant to live as if the past never happened. And then the future, that's where our imagination is, and possibility and enthusiasm. So I don't think we're meant to live without experiencing and drawing in this idea of the future. Being here now, most of the time when we're talking about now, we're trying to find now in this thing we call time. And anytime we're talking about our relationship with now, we have to talk about our relationship with time. And most of us have a slightly adversarial relationship with time to some degree. We're trying to find time. There's not enough time. We're losing time. We're wasting time. We're squandering time. It's going too fast. It's going too slow. So then we take, time management courses, or we read books about how to manage our time, and we try to squeeze out the juice in all of the moments of time. Our relationship with time is a little dysfunctional. But what we're talking about is this linear stretch of time, this horizontal time that has a beginning and an end, and it's divisible, and it's quantifiable, and, it's flat, right? The problem with trying to find the now with a capital N in this horizontal chronological time that the Greeks called chronos time, Cronos, is that that's not where now lives. Now, with a capital N, live in chronos time. You can't find it there. I tried once. I was watching a sunset on the beach, gorgeous evening, sun's going down, and my goal is to find the now, right? The exact moment of the sunset. Have you ever tried that? A sunset's not really an event, right? It's more of this process of, slowly it's coming down in the rays, and I'm trying to spot the now, but then the second I think I find it, it's already over, and I missed it. This is the problem with trying to find the now in chronos time. It's just not there. Now, the Greeks established another kind of time called kairos time. Kairos time is spelled Kairos. It means opportune. Kairos time is vertical time. Kairos time is the time of the gods and of our ancestors and of the angels. Kairos time is all time. So in Kairos time, we get access to the past, we get access to the future and the present. We don't have to fight. We don't have to struggle. We don't have to push away. We don't have to edge everything else out. By its nature, Kairos time is all time. It is infinity. It is eternal. It is the Ouroboros, the snake that eats its own tail, that understands that every ending is only a new beginning, and that every beginning has just been birthed from an ending. That kind of time. And we've all experienced that kind of time, right? Moments in your life where everything else, all the rules of the normal world seemed to break down, and you had access to maybe some great strength, or your intuition, or some great inspiration of just knowing. We've all had access to that Kairos time. But you know who really has access to Kairos time? Children. Children. If you think back to when you were a child, you might remember that you didn't have this sense of calendars and dates and moments and seconds all of the time, right? You were in your play, you were in your imagination. It's why it's so hard to call a child out, from playing back into dinner. Because what you're asking that child to do is leave the magic of the Kairos time and come back and live in this very delineated space. Now, at some point in time, children, they go to school and then they get cultured and they get habituated to living in Chronos time. And as we get older, eventually we spend more and more time in Chronos time and less time in Kairos. To the point that it's easy to forget that that other kind of time even exists. Or we wait for certain moments in our lives to reveal it to us, rather than accessing it on our own. So there's all kinds of benefits of accessing Kairos time. We know some of them intuitively. It's a greater sense of bliss and maybe some sense of oneness, but it's even more practical than that. Accessing Kairos time gives us access to all kinds of healing that's not available in Chronos time. Because the thing is, the rules don't apply there. Your body doesn't have to follow the rules. in Kairos time. It's why people who practice Reiki or healing touch, what they're doing is they're carrying you to a different kind of space. They're not bringing healing in this regular old day-to-day time. All kinds of healing is available because in the Kairos time, that's where we have access to our guides, and we have access to the angels and the gods and whatever else. Your ancestors, they're all there. We can do all kinds of ancestral healing in Kairos time. We can get information from our lineage, understanding what we're carrying and maybe why, and when it's time to let it go. Healing, true healing, magical healing, transformative healing takes place in Kairos time. Another benefit of Kairos time is wholeness, greater wholeness for ourselves. So the shamans understand that as we go through our lives, we drop little pieces of ourselves behind us, kind of like breadcrumbs. Only they're not breadcrumbs, they're pieces of our soul. The shamans call this soul loss. You heard this term before. And it's nothing that we do wrong, and it's nothing that we can really prevent. We will all have soul loss in our lives. Certain events and experiences that we have as we grow up and as we get cultured, and largely as we have to shift from Kairos into this kind of more painful, confining Chronos time, we start to lose these pieces of our soul, things that we can't quite process yet. A part of our soul stays behind. The shamans also understand that if we're going to go and retrieve these pieces of our soul, we do that via access to the Chronos time. So if you ever work with shamans in a soul retrieval, they will carry you from Chronos time to Kairos time via the vehicle of the imagination. And then once you get there, you don't have to know where you left your soul. You don't have to know where all the pieces are. I mean, there might be a piece of you right now, even as you sit here, there might still be a little piece of your soul sitting in your childhood bedroom, or sitting in your 5th grade classroom, or still waiting at, some event for somebody who was supposed to arrive and who didn't. Some kind of these little tiny pains that we tell ourselves they don't matter, they matter. And pieces of ourselves stay behind. So when you arrive in Kairos time, your guides, your healers, your power animals, they'll carry you to these places and draw the pieces of your soul back to you, help you integrate them back into who you are. Because as we break off more pieces of our soul in our lives, we start to feel fragmented. We start to feel not quite ourselves, because we're not. We start to feel a little disjointed, right? We start to lose touch with who we are and what our purpose is and why we're here. Soul retrieval, this kind of idea of calling back the pieces of ourselves, it's where a lot of the knowledge is about who we are and why we're here. Pull back the pieces of ourselves, we become more whole, and once we're more whole, we have this sense of peace within ourselves, a sense of true belonging that we just cannot get and cannot find in Chronos time. Another benefit of Kairos time is connection and interconnection. So the ancient alchemists have a mantra, all is one. They have another one, as above, so below. And the tantrics have one, what is here is elsewhere, and what is not here is nowhere. These mantras that have lasted for millennia last because they're true. They're true in Kairos time. They're the wisdom of Kairos time. The ancient alchemists did not try to convert lead into gold in regular old Chronos time. It's not possible. We know that, right? In regular old Chronos time, you cannot turn lead into gold. They're two completely different things. But what if you access Kairos time, where all things are possible? So maybe they knew something about Kairos time. And these mantras, All is one, as above, so below. What is here is elsewhere, what is not here is nowhere, are all pointing to a singular truth, that we are interconnected, that we are all one, that we are not separate. The rule of Chronos time is separation and division. It is the rule. Time itself is separated and divided, so how can we not also feel separated and divided when we're living in that kind of time? The pandemic has certainly revealed a lot of these divisions. And we see it even more, and we know that it's true. So we return to the Kairos time, to our home. And we remember we are interconnected. We're not different. And what's great about Kairos time is the wisdom you gain there, you don't have to leave there. You get to carry that back with you as you're living your daily life. So now you're sitting here and you know and you felt it in your body that we are all one. And so you're less likely to say things like, I would never behave that way. Because you understand. You can not only get in someone else's shoes, you can get in someone else's life. This is called empathy. This is called compassion. This is what it looks like in action, coming from a place of knowing that we are all one and we are connected. There is no division between us. It's all a mirage, just like that puddle of water on the road ahead. So from that place of connectivity, we build greater empathy, we build greater compassion, and we also become much better listeners. One thing we're not really great at in our culture, especially these days with as much distraction as there is really listening to each other with our full presence and full attention, full awareness. And I think we all miss that, really being heard. I recently rewatched the movie Fight Club. It's been a long time. I don't know if you've seen it. But the gist is, the protagonist in the beginning, he's this man, kind of a middle manager, living a really humdrum life, discontent, disappointed, doesn't feel like he belongs or has a purpose, right? And, before he finds fighting, first he finds support groups, life-threatening support groups. And he begins to attend them, all of them, even though he doesn't have any of these diseases or conditions. But something's happening to him when he enters these spaces. He feels heard. He feels listened to. And then later on in the movie, he meets another woman who has stumbled across this same truth, and she's also attending these same events, and they're having this conversation, and they say, it's so amazing when people think you're dying because they really listen to you instead of just waiting for their turn to talk. So, wisdom from Fight Club. I mean, who knew? So listening to each other, compassion, empathy, all gifts of Kairos time. Another gift, being able to change habits. So we're just coming out of New Year's. So I don't know how many of you have set New Year's resolutions, and I won't ask how those are going. But, a lot of times when we set New Year's resolutions, even just the word, resolute, right? It seems to invoke a certain determination and force and willpower. Well, in order to change something with our willpower, the first thing that has to be true is we have to be conscious. But studies show, get this, that we are only conscious 50% of the time. 50% of the time that we are fully conscious. I suppose that's just an average, right? So as long as we're living in Chronos time, there's a lot that's happening without our awareness of it. How can you change something you're not aware of? Right? So the first thing that has to happen is we have to become aware of something. Now, it's important that we have habits and routines. I mean, imagine if every day when you went to take a walk, you had to think about how to walk. Or you get in a car and you have to think about how to drive. Habits are important. We don't have to relearn how to brush our teeth every morning. We can be brushing our teeth and then having our mind elsewhere at the same time. So habits aren't a bad thing, and having some things, in our subconscious, doing them without our actual knowledge is okay as long as those habits are healthy for us. So what we want to do is we want to go to Kairos time, and we want to be surrounded by our support groups, our angels and our guides, or whoever it is that you talk to or relate to. And we want to set a sankalpa, which is a Sanskrit word for intention, which doesn't that sound a lot different than resolution? It's gentler, it's more pliable. And now we have the support not only of all of these angels and guides, but we're also more whole ourselves. So all the pieces of ourselves are also present also, and all parts of ourselves get to hear what it is that we want to change in our lives. What a difference that makes when you get back into Chronos time. Because then what's going to happen is you're going to be in Chronos time and you're going to have a song come on the radio, or you're going to hear a commercial, or a bird's going to fly by, and you're going to be triggered. That's going to be that connection that's going to carry from the Kairos into Chronos to help you achieve your goals and build your habits. When we use the Kairos time as a way to create better habits and find our healing and connect to people, we live better lives with more appreciation, fewer regrets, and more enjoyment of life as we know it. And that's living in the now. Being able to be free of regrets, understanding how all of the pieces of our lives, the past, the future, all connect into one. So now the question is, how do we access Kairos time? Do we just have to wait for it to knock on our door, or can we go to it? And the answer is yes, we can go to it. We can go knock on that door. One of the best ways to access Kairos time, we're doing it right here. Sacred gatherings around a singular intention. The quality of this space and time that we're in right now together is different than it was an hour ago and that it will be an hour from now. See if you can feel that an hour from now. Notice how it's different from this. Sacred gatherings are one way to knock on the door, to access that Kairos time, to bring yourself into the now. Another way to do it is with ceremony. So our culture, Western modern culture, we don't do a lot of ceremony. We don't honor nearly as many life events as we should. We let birthdays go by without even telling anybody sometimes. Indigenous cultures, ancient cultures use ceremony much more often to move from one state of being to another. Any kind of initiation, any kind of rite of passage was marked with ceremony and was witnessed by others, so that on the other side of that ceremony, that person was understood as changed, as transformed. Events change us, even small things. Not getting the job, losing a relationship, losing a pet. Things change us, and society says just move on. That's what Chronos time wants us to do. Time marches on, just get back on the beat. But we can resist that, and we can instead use these events as portals to the Kairos time and ask for what you want this change to bring into your life. Maybe it's something you're looking forward to, maybe it's something you're scared of, but either way, to bring yourself into a space where you can acknowledge what has changed, where you can set sankalpas for what that's going to mean going forward, and it's all witnessed, that's power. And all you need are 4 things to do a ceremony at home. Number 1, the acknowledgement that the event matters. So we stop fooling ourselves that it didn't matter, it doesn't matter. Maybe you lost the paper route. It's okay. If it hurts, it hurts. So we acknowledge that. Number 2, we find a sacred space. And you don't have to travel to do it. You can create one in your own home. You can build a fire. You can create an altar. You can bring in some pictures. Number 3, you say some words that matter, or you read something that matters, or you write something that matters. But you mark this event with something. And then you bring it to close, because then it's, we're returning to the Chronos time, but we return to the Chronos time changed. Another way to access Kairos time is through silence and retreat. I like to regularly go up to the Ark Retreat Center. If any of you have ever been there, they have a little one-person hermitage. And some people think I'm crazy, but I love it. And when I first walk into the hermitage, and it's so quiet, you're in the middle of the woods, it's strange, and it's a little uncomfortable, and the pole to go to the phone, it's right there. They used to not have Wi-Fi, that was better, but now you can access Wi-Fi. So, pretty soon though, that silence pulls you in. That space pulls you in. And I go there when I have questions in my life, when I'm not sure what my next steps are. And I always leave with clarity every single time. And every single time I go, I think maybe it won't work this time. Maybe the magic won't work this time, but it always does. There's something about silence and retreat that really helps us find our wholeness again, find our connection again, find our sense of belonging and purpose once again. Your dream world. Dreams are in the language of Kairos time. It's, you're one place and then you're another and you don't know how you got there, right? And you know what else? You don't even question it. You don't even question it. You were one place and now you're another, and here you are. Dreams are of the language of Kairos time. They're in symbol, they're in metaphor. They mean something to us. And so the more we drop into our dreams, the more we explore our dreams, the more we seek to understand them, the more we're gaining wisdom from the Kairos time. The author, Michael Meade, says that Kairos time is something that happens when Chronos time breaks open. All of these things that we're talking about are ways to break open the Chronos time so that we can access something different. With the pandemic, we saw a real example of what happens when Chronos time breaks open, right? We were all kind of caught flat-footed, and here we were, and we all just were stuck here in this space. And then we saw how people responded. Some people hungered for normal back, let's just get back to normal, right? That's that plea to just retreat to the comfort of Chronos time. And then you saw a lot of other people also taking this opportunity to move into a space of change. I mean, probably all of us here, our lives have changed because and thanks to the pandemic breaking time open and revealing something different to us. Fairy tales, myths, legends. Fairy tales are not just for children. Fairy tales are stories that are set outside of time and space. They transcend time and space. So it doesn't matter if you're reading, a Nordic story about Loki and his antics, or Thor and his hammer, or you're studying Roman mythology or Greek mythology, or you're reading Little Red Riding Hood, or, The Ugly Duckling, or Goldilocks. These stories have the power to transport you from one state of being to another, to essentially shift your consciousness. Because what is Kairos time if not consciousness, if not awareness? So with all of these things, these are all ways that we're knocking on the door, that we're saying, I'm interested in accessing something that's more real, something that's more lasting, something that's connected, something that's sacred. Kairos time is sacred time, and Kairos time is where the now lives. So now, instead of me trying to hunt down the now in a sunset, I allow the sunset to reveal the now to me. You feel the difference. One is about will, it's about pushing, it's about desire, it's about ego to some degree. The other is about acceptance and release and letting go and surrender and being in that space of peace. Another access point to the Kairos is music. Music and poetry, spoken word, right? But when it comes to music, one person's Gregorian chants is another person's heavy metal, right? I mean, what's the music that carries you to a state of awareness, to a greater consciousness? So I did a road trip with my daughters a couple weekends ago, and my daughter wanted to listen to some music. And the Venn diagram between the kind of music that she likes and the kind of music that I like is really two circles, about like this. But if there's a tiny bit of overlap, then The Weeknd. We can talk about The Weeknd. So I guess The Weeknd, I don't know if you heard of this band, they dropped a new album and she wanted to listen to it. And so I said, okay, at least this music it doesn't bother me. I can listen to it. It's easy background music. So we're listening to it and, it's not carrying me to any state of, ecstasy or bliss or anywhere. It's not, but it's fine. It's fine. Until we get to the last track and it's a spoken track. And my attention was caught. Time broke open. It really did. And I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, when I get home, I have to look that up because I didn't get all the words, So I go home and I look it up and I see it's called Phantom Regret by Jim. And then I look a little deeper and I realize that it's spoken by Keri, who is one of my favorite people and who I actually got to meet once, which is a whole different fun story. And so then I was even more enamored by this story and by this little song chant. So I want to read it for you. And I want to see, maybe it carries you, maybe it doesn't, but I want to give you that opportunity to let it carry you there. So get comfortable in your body. Go ahead and take a couple of moments to just shift or adjust. And close your eyes. Just for a little while here, just feel what your body feels like. Notice the clothes on your body. Notice your feet. Notice if you feel cold or warm, and just let that be true. Notice where your thoughts are, and just let that be true. You're tuned to Dawn FM, the middle of nowhere on your dial. So sit back and unpack. You may be here a while. Now that all future plans have been postponed, and it's time to look back on the things you thought you owned. Do you remember them well? Were you high or just stoned? How many grudges did you take to your grave? When you weren't liked or followed, how did you behave? Was it often a dissonant chord you were strumming? Were you ever in tune with the song life was humming? If pain's living on when your body's long gone, and your phantom regret hasn't let it go yet, you may not have died in the way that you must. All specters are haunted by their own lack of trust. When you're all out of time, there's nothing but space. No hunting, no gathering, no nations, no race. And heaven is closer than those tears on your face. When the purple rain falls, we're all bathed in its grace. Heaven's for those who let go of regret. And you have to wait here when you're not all there yet. But you could be there by the end of this song, where the weekend's so good and he plays all week long. Bang a gong, get it on. And if your broken heart's heavy when you step on the scale, you'll be lighter than air when they pull back the veil. Consider the flowers. They don't try to look right. They just open their petals and turn to the light. Are you listening real close? Heaven's not that. It's this. It's the depth of this moment. We don't reach for bliss. God knows life is chaos, but he made one thing true. You gotta unwind your mind, train your soul to align, and dance till you find that divine boogaloo. In other words, you gotta be heaven to see heaven. May peace be with you. You can keep your eyes closed for just another moment or so. Feel the breath moving in and out of your nostrils. Notice how it's a little cooler on the inhale, a little warmer on the exhale. See if you can follow the path of your breath as it enters your body down into your belly, and then as it exits. Notice if you can the slight pause, the top of an inhale or the bottom of an exhale, and just be in that space. And shift your attention to your heartbeat and feel it beating behind your chest. Become aware of how it feels, the texture, and notice the space at the end of the beats, that little bit of a pause of nothing, and just rest there. And then notice your thoughts. See them come and go. No judgment. Don't have to squash them or judge them, just notice them. See if you can find that space in between the thoughts where there's nothing. And then see if you can align the space between your thoughts with the space between your breath, with the space between your heartbeat. See if you can find where those three things align. No thought, no breath, no heartbeat. And yet you still exist. Settle there in that space where there is nothing but consciousness, pure consciousness, full awareness, and then carry that full awareness to every cell of your body. Feel the cells of your body and your arms and your legs and your torso all coming to life. Feel parts of yourself that you've left behind on this journey called life, feeling safe to come home right now. You don't have to know what they are. You just simply say, it's okay. It's safe. They're accepted. There's no judgment. Right here, right now. This is the time. This is the now where we bring ourselves to wholeness. And from your place of wholeness, extend yourself out energetically. Feel the others in this room and your connectivity with everyone else here. We may not be hugging so much these days, but we can still give ourselves and each other an energetic hug and an embrace, an understanding that we're all in this together and that we can help and support each other as we travel through this earth realm. Feel connection to your ancestors. And if there's any wisdom available from them, maybe you can draw it down now. If there's any wisdom from your soul guides, maybe it's available now. And then slowly, to return, we take our time. Might just feel like letting your chin drop to your chest or shrug your shoulders or some kind of signal to your body that when you open your eyes, we're going to be back in Chronos time. Thank you. Thank you. It's just so nice to be able to hold hands in a group again like this. I'm just going to take a moment. I'm going to squeeze the hand on my right. We're just going to pass it all the way around the circle. Here we go. Connected, present, together. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel the sturdiness of the support underneath you. And extend your imagination down, like roots growing from your feet, reaching down through the layers of earth and mud and clay, extending and winding and reaching, intertwining and connecting with everybody else's roots here, and even those who aren't here. In the Kairos time, all things are possible. So if there's someone that you want to join you in this space energetically, call them in. And connect to their roots and continue to let this root system go down, 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 all the way to the core of the earth where all is one. The original source, life, of support, of healing, of wisdom. And with your inhales, begin to draw that up, just asking for what you need, drawing up wisdom or knowledge or clarity or peace. And feel free to let it overflow to this person that you've invited or people you've invited. Letting this energy move back up into your feet and then up into your legs and into the pelvis. And then up the spine, one vertebrae at a time, extending up and out through the crown of the head, reaching now upward in a beam of light to the heavens. See and feel this beam of light reach up through the clouds, through the atmosphere, all the way into the heavens where it connects to yet another source. Divine wisdom. And with your inhales, draw down anything that you need from the heavens, any support that you need, or understanding, or healing, or growth. And let the energies of the earth and the energies of the heavens mingle in your heart, expanding and opening your heart. Letting that reach out through your arms, extending into and around our circle, inclusive of all the people you've invited, those we can see and those we can't. And let's close with a stated sankalpa. So sankalpa, you begin with the words, I am grateful to, or I am grateful for. And then it's your intention. And you can just state it internally 3 times. And just feel that that has been witnessed and seen and it is supported. You don't have to do this alone. You can trust and you can return to this moment and pull back from this energy and support network anytime you need to. And so go ahead now and release hands and bring your hands together in front of your heart center. And thank yourself for being here today, for showing up for you. Namaste.